Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm finally going to be recording my what I watched in December video. I know it's already the end of January, but I just never had a chance to film this one. So I just want to do it before January ends, and yeah. And before I show you guys what I watched, I just quickly wanted to go over this little spreadsheet that I started to create. I have one for manga as well, but this is just for the anime and movies that I watch. And yeah, it's a pretty cool little spreadsheet that I made. It just kind of helps me keep track of what I watched, what I own, when I watched it. And then on the right here, I have all of the ratings, how I rate my stuff now. So I do rate everything based on the picture quality, the music or the movie score, basically the music that's in the anime or the movie. I'm also rating it based off of the story, the characters, and then just my personal enjoyment. And then at the end, I just average them all out and I get a final score here on the right. And then on the very last one here, I have the same thing for manga, but after I watch things, I'm gonna basically determine if I want to keep it or not. Thankfully, everything that I watched in December, I am keeping, but yeah, if I didn't like it or if it's just something that I don't think I would rewatch or reread, I'm just gonna put a note here and it'll be going up on Mercari for sale. So yeah, this is kind of how I keep track of everything. So just wanted to show you guys that really quick, but yeah. Now let's get into what I watched in December. All right, so for the first couple of weeks in December, I was taking up a lot of time watching this Lord of the Rings trilogy. I watch these every few years. I mean, I feel like I watch this like every other year, but this is just an awesome film. These are actually like one of my favorite trilogies. They might actually be my favorite trilogy. They're really great films. Everything is perfect in this film. I love the music, the story, the characters, and just so you guys are aware, on my spreadsheet, I rated all of that a 10 out of 10 because this really is just that great. I'm pretty sure everyone has seen these films by now, but if you haven't, just because you think these are like old films and nerdy films or whatever, I would just go ahead and give it a shot because I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy them. I even showed these actually to my in-laws a few years back, I think like 2 or 3 years back, and they fell in love with it as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure anybody can enjoy these films. The only place that they didn't get a perfect score on was for the picture quality. I mean, the 4K, don't get me wrong, it looked amazing. It was probably the best that it's ever looked. There are some scenes that look just really awesome. I just thought that in some scenes it was a little soft and it didn't look as crisp, and that might just be because of how far back these films were filmed. But overall, it was a great, and I gave the picture quality for this one an 8. So that averaged my score out to a 9.6 out of 10. And all of these movies get the same score. Let me just quickly show you guys each steelbook. But this one is The Fellowship of the Ring. This one started it all off, and it starts off great. It just gives you that sense of adventure that not quite many films can give you. Especially that first half, everything seems pretty happy. They're in the Shire. The hobbits are kind of portrayed as these really happy beings. They're always eating, they're always happy, they're always smoking, and they're kind of oblivious to kind of everything else that's going on around the world. But then everything's kind of turned upside down when they kind of choose Frodo to be the one to carry the ring and send him off on that mission to destroy the One Ring, to rule them all. And yeah, from then on, it just kind of gets darker and darker. And one of my favorite scenes in this movie actually is towards the middle point, when you have to switch discs. There's kind of that intermission, but I always found it funny when they're in Rivendell talking about what they have to do, the mission that they're gonna go on, and Merry and Pippin, they're just kind of there, they don't know what's going on, and it was only supposed to be Frodo to go on the mission, but then Samwise comes in and says, I'm gonna go with Frodo as well, and then Merry and Pippin just tag along and can say, yeah, we're going as well, I'm not gonna leave my friends behind. And then at the end, everyone's agreeing that they're all gonna go, and then I think one of them, Merry or Pippin, I don't remember which one, but they're just kind of like,
where are we going?
That scene just always cracks me up, and yeah, it just kind of just shows how oblivious these the hobbits are. But anyways, yeah, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Great start to this awesome trilogy. Then we get into The Two Towers. This one I remember not liking this one as much. Back in the day, I always thought that this was one of the slower ones. But rewatching it this time around, I actually found myself enjoying it quite a bit. This is actually when Smeagol comes into the picture, and he is just one of my favorite characters in all of film. I just kind of love the back and forth between Smeagol and Gollum, him and himself. And there was a lot of that in this film, so yeah, I just found myself enjoying it quite a bit. Even the part with the trees, or like the wood people, I forget what they're called already. I watched this one in the beginning of December, but I thought it kind of went kind of quick. I remember that taking forever. Them walking through the woods felt like forever, but this time around, it didn't really bother me, although probably that's due to the fact that I would watch like an hour or even 45 minutes every day when I got home from work while I was watching these. So I would get home from work, watch 45 minutes to an hour of the extended editions, which are each like 3.5 to 4 hours long. So yeah, you guys can imagine it took me a while to get through these films, but it was kind of enjoyable watching it that way. It kind of felt like I was watching more of a series than a movie, but yeah. Two Towers, awesome film, especially that battle sequence at Helm's Deep. That part looked amazing on 4K. It is in the dark. It is at night, so it's pretty dark, but with the 4K transfer that they did on this one, it actually looked really good. And I actually do have some pictures of that on Instagram, so if you guys haven't followed me on Instagram, I definitely suggest following me. I always have a link on my videos down below, but yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with Instagram. It's kind of fun just posting stuff as I'm reading stuff, as I'm watching stuff, and I also share deals there. So yeah, if you guys haven't followed me, I would definitely recommend following me on Instagram. But anyways, then we get to the Return of the King, which has like 10 endings to it, but each one of them are awesome. And for me, the ending of this one of those endings always ends up bringing me to tears, just because by the end of this film, you really do feel like you've gone on the adventure with everyone here, especially with Frodo and Samwise. And the scene that always gets me is that scene at the end when Aragorn becomes the king, and Frodo and Samwise attend the wedding. I think he's getting married, and once he meets Aragorn, they actually bow down to Aragorn, and Aragorn basically tells them,
My friends.
You bow to no one.
and yeah, that scene there just always gets me, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. But yeah, Return of the King, awesome film. Love this trilogy, and I'm definitely glad that I picked up this 4K Steelbook edition. I have heard that they're gonna release like a huge set sometime this year in 2021, and I love this film so much that I might just end up picking that one up as well. Depends on what it looks like, but I like these steelbooks, but I probably will end up picking that one up. And if I like that set more than this one, then I'll probably just end up selling this one and just keep the bigger set. So yeah, Lord of the Rings motion picture trilogy, I give this 9.6 out of 10. Right. Took a while talking about the Lord of the Rings, but I did also pick up the Hobbit trilogy, also in this same steelbook edition. And yeah, while I don't quite love these as much as the Lord of the Rings, I still do very much enjoy these films. I think I'm kind of in the minority there, because I always hear a lot of people kind of hate on these films, and I really don't understand why. These are really greatly made films. They look great. The story is there as well. It's a really great story. Not quite as good as the Lord of the Rings, but it's still great. And I just love being thrown back into the world of Middle Earth. And yeah, one thing though I will say about this one is that I did think this one looked quite a bit better than The Lord of the Rings, and that's probably just due to the fact that I think this one was shot like a decade after The Lord of the Rings. So yeah, it definitely looked great. So as far as picture quality for these 4K discs, I did give them an 8.5 out of 10, and then everything else got an 8 all across the board. So I rated it an 8 for the music, the story, the characters, and personal enjoyment. 8 is still a really great score, so I still personally really enjoy them. And here's The Hobbit Unexpected Journey Steelbook. One of my favorite scenes in this film is just that back and forth between Bilbo Baggins and Gollum there again. Gollum looked really good on this one. I think they definitely did a good job making him look much better in this film. But yeah, that was an awesome scene in this one. That was probably my favorite part of the film as well. Then we got The Desolation of Smaug. Smaug looked awesome on 4K, and he sounded great as well. Should probably give this a higher score, but I already rated it, so I'm not going to change it. But I just remember him sounding really great. Anytime he would talk, you just felt that bass, and it sounded really awesome in my surround sound. But yeah, so that last bit of The Desolation of Smaug, I think that was kind of the highlight of this 4K disc. But another scene that I just kind of want to talk about is the barrel scene, when they're kind of escaping the woodland elves location. I forget what it's called, but I don't know why. I just always really loved that scene. They're just kind of bouncing all over the place, going down a waterfall. It just really did feel like I was in a ride, and I don't know. I always loved that scene, so that was also a highlight of this 4K disc for me. And then we get to the Battle of the Five Armies, which again, a lot of people hate on this one specifically. They actually say that this one is the worst one from the trilogy, but I disagree. I actually kind of enjoy this one the most. I mean, in the beginning, you get that attack from Smaug attacking the city of men, and it just looked awesome. And then those battle sequences at the end, I think they looked and sounded great on 4K. So yeah, I enjoyed this film, and I don't understand the hate on these films. So yeah, overall, I think I gave this it averaged out to about an 8.1 out of 10. So yeah, basically Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit took up about half of December. That was all I watched in like the first 2.5 weeks of December, and it was awesome. I actually really love watching these during December. I don't know why. I think I watched them last time in December as well. Let's move on to the next movie. Right, so in December, I did have about a week and a half off of work, and I remember that during that first day that I was off from work, I did go ahead and decide to watch Mulholland Drive, which was my criterion for the month of December. I guess I started in December, but I'm trying to watch at least one criterion film per month, and in December it happened to be Mulholland Drive. And this is one that I just have heard a lot of things about, and I had never seen a David Lynch movies before, so I had no idea what I was in for. But after watching this film, I did look into him, and apparently he's like the master of weird films, messed up films, kind of stuff like that. And this was definitely a weird film. When I started watching it, something about it felt off. The acting felt like it was forced, like it was bad, and I didn't know if it was intentional or not. And then just strange things started to happen, like some guy that didn't like coffee and he just like spit it out. I don't know, just weird things were happening towards that in the first half of this film.
That was a highly recommended. That is considered one of the finest espressos in the world.
What is going on here? There is no way that girl is in my movie.
And yeah, I didn't find myself enjoying it very much for quite some time. And then we kind of got to the middle, and something happened, and it kind of just did a complete 180. And And yeah, I don't want to ruin it for those that haven't seen it, but all I'll say is that the second half of the film made me question everything that happened in the first half of the film. And when the film ended, I was so confused, but I was also so intrigued by the movie that I decided to watch the whole first half again. And right after I finished watching the film, I just put it back in and I watched the whole first half again. And yeah, it kind of made a little bit more sense. So I have my theories about what was going on in this film. But yeah, it's kind of a hard recommendation because it is a weird film, but I would at least give it a shot. Try to watch it at least once, and I ended up giving this film a 7.4 out of 10. And this one's a little weird because, let me show you guys. So here's Mulholland Drive. Here's my scores for this one. So for the picture quality, didn't look the greatest. I mean, everything was kind of average. The music was average. And the story, I mean, it was really weird. It was kind of confusing. So I ended up giving that one a 7 as well. I mean, and the characters, there was nothing particularly special about the characters. Like, I didn't love them. So I also gave that a 7. So 7 all across, just an average film. But for personal enjoyment, I did give it a 9, just because it intrigued me. It just really did catch me, that second part of the film. And just the fact that I went back and watched the whole first half all over again. Not many films do that. So that's why for personal enjoyment, I gave it a 9 out of 10. And it ended up averaging the film to a 7.4 out of 10. So yeah. All right, next up, we did get a 4K release for Blade, and I did end up picking up this awesome Steelbook edition. Here's the front, here's the back, and yeah, I do love this Steelbook. And the movie Blade has always been like one of my favorite films growing up. I think I've mentioned it before in like some of my manga hauls that I grew up watching a bunch of vampire stuff, and Blade was definitely one of the ones that I grew up watching a lot. I remember watching it several times with my cousins. Blade 1, Blade 2, Blade 3. These and the Underworld series, those are two series that kind of were a huge part of my childhood. I really did love these films. And when I saw that they were releasing a 4K version of Blade, I kind of wish they did the whole trilogy, because I do enjoy all three. Even the third one, I know people say it's bad, but I just enjoy all of them. I grew up watching them. So, but yeah, this first one is still a good one. And the 4K transfer definitely looked pretty good. Especially that scene in the beginning with the bloodbath, when they're kind of in the club and it starts pouring blood through the sprinkler system. That scene looked really good on 4K, and it sounded really good with all of the music, all of the techno music kind of playing in the background. Yeah, it just brought back a lot of memories, and I definitely really enjoyed this one. And my score for this one was a 7.4 out of 10. I mean, I personally do really enjoy it, but overall I can still recognize that it is just an average vampire film. So yeah, that's why I gave it a 7.4 out of 10. And yeah, sad day, guys. I don't know if you noticed, but this dent here just happened as I was recording this video, and it's definitely a sad day, especially if you're like a steelbook collector like I am, because as I was trying to display this one, it fell off of my hand and it ended up breaking in half, which I got really upset about. But I don't know, I guess I'll just, I mean, when it's closed, when it's in the closed position, you can't really tell, but I did give it this dent as well. So yeah, definitely a sad day for me, but oh well, what can I do? Just gonna try not to open it too much, so hopefully one day maybe I'll just forget about it. I did run out of sleeves, so I need to buy some more and put this one in a sleeve and just kind of forget about it. But alright, let's move on to the next film. Alright, so this is the last film from my collection that I watched this month, and I'm gonna be really careful with this one because I really don't want to break this one. So I'm just gonna leave it there, not gonna touch it at all anymore. But yeah, Tenet. This is the Christopher Nolan film from last year. Had a lot of controversy because it was the first film that came out in theaters after all of this stuff going on last year, and it didn't do very well. I personally really wanted to watch it in theaters, but I don't know. I just couldn't bring myself to go just expose myself and my son, because we had just had a baby, and I don't know. I just would have felt selfish if I went to go watch it by myself when we just had our babies and possibly exposing him to something. So I just decided not to go watch it, and I waited for the 4K release, and I got this awesome steelbook here. And the movie definitely did not disappoint in all aspects, really. The 4K transfer looked really good. It was probably one of the best transfers that I saw last year. There was just so much detail that you can see in this film, especially on the close-ups when they go do close-ups on the faces. There's so much detail, and I think it looks really great on 4K. So I ended up giving the picture quality a 9 out of 10 for this one. And then the music, I always love the soundtracks in Christopher Nolan films. I mean, most of the times it's Hans Zimmer, and he's known for doing like awesome soundtracks. I mean, he's done Inception, the Batman trilogy, and Interstellar for Christopher Nolan, which Interstellar is my favorite soundtrack of all time. And then he's also done other things like the Pirates of the Caribbean music, which I think is the best part of those films. I mean, I love those films, but just the music is really great. And some other ones like The Lion King as well. So yeah, really great soundtrack. And unfortunately, he wasn't the one that did the soundtrack for Tenet. I'm actually not sure who did. I don't remember the name, but it was just as great. It was just as if Hans Zimmer was there making the score as well. I think it sounded really awesome. I do know that a lot of people complained because you couldn't hear the dialogue from the characters, but for me it wasn't an issue. I mean, I watched it here at home and I have a surround sound, so I guess it kind of helped with understanding the dialogue. But just the music, man, like, again, this one had a lot of bass when the music was playing, and it just sounded really great. And I ended up giving the audio an 8.5 out of 10. Now, as far as the story, I did kind of feel like the story was a bit kind of basic. It was just a bad guy trying to destroy the world, and we have David Washington's character, which they don't even give him a name. Like, even when I had subtitles playing, and even in the subtitles they just refer to him as protagonist. But anyways, yeah, it's just him trying to stop that guy from destroying the world, basically. So the story is pretty basic, but the concepts that drive the story were really interesting and complex, and that was what had me intrigued throughout the whole film. I was just trying to figure out how this all worked, which in the beginning of the film they kind of tell you, just don't try to figure it out, just try to enjoy the film, which eventually I kind of did. But yeah, overall my final score for this film ended up being an 8.3 out of 10. Definitely not one of my favorite Christopher Nolan films. I mean, I still love the Batman trilogy, the Inception, Interstellar. I love all of those more than Tenet, but I think this one might just be the one behind those. Still great film. Has a lot of rewatchability factor for me just to watch the 4K and the audio transfer for these. And yeah, loved it. Love Christopher Nolan. Can't wait to see what he has next. Alright, so now for the anime. I did end up finishing Cautious Hero. The hero is overpowered but overly cautious. Quite a long title there, but yeah, I started this one in November. I think in my November, what I watched in November video, I just kind of said that I wasn't really enjoying the first half of this one very much. And watching the second half now, it did kind of redeem itself. I did really enjoy those last 2 episodes. But it didn't really bring up my score very high very much. I mean, the art style, there was nothing really special about it. It just looked okay. Again, I ended up giving the art style a 7 out of 10. Music as well, there was no soundtrack that really caught my attention in here. And for the story and the characters, I mean, the characters were pretty interesting at first. I found it really funny at first when he was being overly cautious and he was just destroying that slime, just kind of blowing him to bits, even though it was just a slime. But I don't know, after a while it just kind of got repetitive, and he was just overpowered for the sake of being overpowered. Like nothing, there was basically nothing that could stop him. And yeah, I just think there's other animes that do it better, kind of like One Punch Man. I love One Punch Man, and he's definitely overpowered, but I don't know, they just do a much better job with the story in One Punch Man. So yeah, overall my final score for this one ended up being a 6.4 out of 10. But I'm not getting rid of it just yet. I do love this box set, so I'm gonna keep it for a bit. I think it looks awesome in my collection, so maybe eventually if I ever need to sell it, then I might sell this one before other box sets. But yeah, for now, 6.4 out of 10, but I will be keeping it in my collection. Okay, so the next anime that I watched in December was Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, and the film as well, Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl. And man, I was sleeping on this one for quite some time. I had watched the first couple of episodes of Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai like almost a year, maybe even 2 years ago, and we just kind of dropped it, my wife and I think my wife wasn't enjoying it as much. I thought it was interesting right from the beginning, but since we usually do watch things together, since she dropped it, I dropped it as well. But during the month of December, I woke up early one day and I just decided to start watching it without my wife, and I finished all of this. I think it was even in one day. It was so good, guys. It definitely turned out to be one of my favorite anime, I guess, in this genre. I guess I would call it like a romance series, romantic comedy maybe, mystery, I don't know. It's kind of all of those things all combined into one genre, and it is really good. Mai might just be like best girl for me in all of anime right now at the moment. I just really loved her character, and her arc in the anime, which was like the first 3 or 4 episodes, was my favorite story in the anime. I just really love her relationship with Sakuta, which Sakuta even as well. I really liked his personality. He was just really laid back. He wasn't afraid to say what was on his mind. And it always made for some great comedic moments between these two characters. And even him with some of the other girls, he was just really blunt with them. He would just tell them straight up what he was thinking, and he was very perverted a lot of the time too, but he was always just kind of joking around, and he never really meant, he was never really serious about any of it, which kind of made it really funny in my opinion. But yeah, I just really liked his character. He was a really different type of male protagonist that I hadn't seen before. So yeah, for the characters, they were all awesome. I gave them an 8 out of 10. The story, same thing. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I just really like the supernatural elements about it. You guys haven't seen this one. It basically starts off with Mai. She seems to be going through an issue or like a supernatural issue where people are starting to forget about her, and whenever she's out in public, people stopped recognizing her, and it even went so far as to where her mother even stopped recognizing her. But eventually we find out that what she's going through is something that they call in the show adolescent syndrome, which from what I understood is just something that teenagers tend to go through whenever there's something that's bothering them, and they basically need to pinpoint what that issue is before they can move forward and move past whatever it is that these characters are going through, which in this anime it seemed to just happen mainly to a bunch of girls, and Sakuta was just at the center of it all. He was always generally the one that kind of helped them resolve their adolescent syndrome. So yeah, it was very interesting. They all had different supernatural elements going on with them. Like with Mai, people were forgetting about her. With another girl, she was kind of going through this time loop that she was stuck in until she resolved this issue that she was going through. And then we get to the movie, which in my opinion, was the best story out of the bunch. From the anime, I loved my stories, but Shoko's story here in Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl, this was what really made me love this series a lot. In this one, it was just a movie that was centralized in one storyline, which was basically Shoko. And if you've seen the show, then you'll know that Shoko is actually the girl that Sakuta, I guess, was his first love when he was younger, and he actually went to the school where he meets Mai, because that's where this girl went to school, and he was trying to find her, and eventually he does find her. I think he finds her in the anime, but she was a young girl, much younger than him. Like, I think he was the same age. She was the same age as his sister. So that kind of confused him. And then in this film, he sees her in her adult form, like his age, and you're just kind of confused as to what's going on. And it turns out there's, like, I guess I won't spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but it's really good. There was definitely a lot of twists and turns here that made it a little bit darker than the original anime series. So yeah, I just really love this one. There are a lot of unexpected moments, and I think it did a great job wrapping up the story of Sakuta. So yeah, overall I ended up giving the anime an 8.1 and the film an 8.2 out of 10. Both great and definitely one of my favorite anime now, and I would definitely recommend it if you guys haven't seen it. Alright, and then finally the last anime that I watched in December was Demon Slayer, and this was definitely a good treat. I really enjoyed this one. The first time I saw the animation, I was just blown away, especially the first time he used his sword and you actually got to see those water elements on his sword. It looked really great. I gave the art style on this one a 9 out of 10. I think it looked really great. And I just picked up the manga, and the manga doesn't come close to the animation in this one, so that's gonna get kind of hard to get used to. But since I was spoiled and watched the anime first, but I do want to go ahead and read the manga just because I really enjoyed this series a lot as I was watching it. But yeah, there's not too much I really need to say about this one, because I'm pretty sure I'm like the last person on earth to watch this anime. So I'll just give you guys my ratings for this one. For the art style, I already said I gave it a 9. Music was also really great. I gave the music an 8 out of 10. Story, also great, and it's getting a lot more interesting now that we're introduced towards the end of the series. We got introduced to more of the Demon Slayers, which I'm really intrigued to see what they can do. So yeah, I gave the story and the characters an 8 out of 10. And then for personal enjoyment, also an 8 out of 10. So overall, my final score for this one was also an 8.2 out of 10. So yeah, now I just can't wait for that film to get released here. I think I'm gonna wait to read the manga until after I watch that film. So yeah, excited to see that. And now I am on the Demon Slayer train, and I love it just like everybody else does. So yeah, that concludes everything that I watched in December, everything that's in my collection at least. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys watched this, well, I guess it's been a while, but just let me know what you guys are watching. Do you guys agree with my ratings? Maybe we can have a discussion down below in the comments about all the stuff that I watched. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.